Hi, this is Joe Rabil from Rabil Stock Research with your Daily 5 today. For the past 30 years, I have provided research and consulting to some of the biggest portfolio managers on Wall Street. Today, I would like to examine the mega cap stocks and see how their trends look. And then what I want to do is compare those with a bigger universe to give you an idea of what I think is really taking place right now. Finally, we'll take a closer look at a few of the mega cap stocks that I actually think look pretty interesting right now. Let's go to the first graphic here. And so this is one of the reports that I send out each week, or at least a part of one. And what I've done is I've taken the whole stock universe and sorted it by market cap. And these are the top 30 in order. And so and then what I've done is I've taken the short term, intermediate term, and long term in terms of trends and broken down by category, essentially using a monthly chart, weekly chart, and daily chart to give you a pretty good idea of how the trends are situated right now. If we go and look at this, you can see on the far right, I always start with the longer term time frames. If you go to the far right and look at the longer term trends, the vast majority of these, really, there's only a few that are negative. And the reality is those are a couple energy stocks that look like they're pretty close to turning around. But if you go through and look at the first 21 in a row are all positive trends, long-term positive trends. And then, we've got a pretty good exposure to a lot of green on this long-term time frame. And then if you go intermediate term, you can see the vast majority of these trends are also positive. We don't have any negative trends right now on an intermediate term basis based on the top 30 stocks in terms of market weight. I call this report the heavyweights because these are the stocks that are really influencing the indices out there. If these start to turn down and show signs of weakness or reversal, then you got to start getting worried about the market indices. But if you're going to see a tremendous amount of green in both the intermediate term and the long term categories here, then I think you have to feel pretty good about the overall trend and overall condition of the market. So this is something I try and keep an eye on, a pretty close eye on. So you kind of want to keep an eye out on these stocks and do your own diligent work on each one of these and figure out, are we starting to leak a little oil? Are we losing some trends here? If you do that, then I think you can start to get a flavor for whether the market is losing strength or not. We do have a few areas in the short-term camp that are in corrections. A few of the banks, financials, stuff like that, but really not a lot when you look at it overall. For the most part, the short-term, intermediate term, and long-term trends, I think are really in pretty good shape when you look at the top 30 mega cap stocks. So what I want to do is, looking at this and looking at it from these three different categories, let's go to a different chart. So this is another chart that I send out weekly that essentially takes, so I've got a picture of the S&P here with a few moving averages, but underneath what I want you to focus on are the short-term positives and the long-term positives. And this is a report where I actually go through over the weekend every single stock. These are the top 400 stocks, not just the top 30, but the top 400 stocks, essentially based on market cap divided by sector. And this is kind of the running total week by week of how many are short-term positives. And if you notice what's taken place, even though we've had a pretty good run here recently, the number of short-term positives continues to drop here. We're at 37% of the top 400 are short-term positives. Now, the good news, I think, is that we're still at 90% when you look at long-term. So the longer-term condition of most stocks out of these top 400 I think are still in pretty good shape, but it's a little disturbing to see the lack of participation, especially recently. I was kind of okay with them holding this 50% line, which is this line going across. But once we broke the 50% mark, it's sort of telling me there's actually been a little bit more weakness. So this is something we have to watch. It's not necessarily a timing issue. It's sort of telling you about the health of the market, generally speaking. And what I want to see is this line to start to turn up again. We want to be on the lookout for stocks, not the top 30, but stocks in the maybe lower tier of the S&P 500 or the Russell 1000 that are pretty large market cap, but just not in that top 30. We want to see improvement in those stocks. And I think if we do, then that's probably a pretty good sign for the general market. We could continue to see this trend move higher. What concerns me is if this keeps pushing higher just based on those top mega cap stocks, then I think you're looking at a more of a deteriorating overall position for the market. So just something to keep in mind. I think it's important. I watch this on a regular basis. Obviously, looking at the mega caps are important because they have the direct influence on what the price of the indices are doing. But knowing what's going on under the hood is very important to me, and that's why I go through each one of these stocks one at a time each weekend on the weekend. Let's switch over and let's look at a few individual stocks. So I'm going to start with Amazon, and I'm going to focus in, again, anyone who's watched any of my videos, that, or at my regular show, weekly show, I talk about multiple time frames. I'm going to zero in on the weekly chart for Amazon because you had this really powerful move to the upside that ended, little middle part of last year and really just went sideways, consolidation sideways, while it worked off the overbought condition in the MACD. And MACD got down closer to the zero line. And then we also had a really powerful reading in ADX with a reading up close to 60. And that's a really good sign. When we get a big reading like that, it usually means after we go through a consolidation, you should be looking for more upside. The neat thing about what Amazon did was, even though the indicators pulled back and corrected, we didn't really see price do that. It just went sideways. And that's usually a pretty powerful condition when that happens. So most recently, we broke out above 35 pretty convincingly, I will say. And we're starting to see this green DI line, which is a representation of the strength of the buyers, starting to kick in again. So I think that's a pretty good sign there. There's the first target I have on this is around 4,000. I think this is a pretty good breakout. Now, I'd like to see this pull back a little bit. It obviously made a pretty big move last week, and it's gotten a little short term. It's probably a little ahead of itself. If we can get any kind of a little dip, I think that would probably be a pretty good opportunity. Let's take a quick look at Netflix. So I want to look at the monthly first because we have this strong uptrend that has been in place where ADX has been above 25 for a pretty significant period. And really, we've done nothing for almost a year now. Actually, it's been about a year where this stock has just gone sideways. And what it's been doing, it's been working off the overbought condition and getting closer to the 18-month. When you get far away from the 18-month, you're basically overbought. And now we've worked our way back closer to the 18-month line. And it looks to me like, it might be getting ready to start to emerge again. Notice how price on the weekly chart has now come back to the zero line on a MACD basis and has started to turn up. And I like the combination of a MACD at the zero line with low ADX. That's a good combination to have, especially when we're correcting back to some pretty good support. And then notice how we've now crossed back above the 18 and the 40-week moving averages, and I think that's a pretty good sign. We've got a little bit of resistance around 550. I think if we can get through that, this has a pretty good chance of starting to participate in a pretty decent way. Lastly, let's take a look at Tesla. Another one where we had a really powerful move on the monthly, and it's been consolidating and correcting. I was kind of hoping that this was going to pull back closer to the 18-month line and maybe even dip down a little bit closer to 500. But notice the candlesticks. It keeps providing these wicks. Every time it gets down near 600, there seems to be buyers underneath. And I think that provides some support here for this pattern. And then if we go and look at the weekly chart, we had an overbought condition. in MACD that has been worked off by getting closer to the zero line. The moving averages have kind of come together. At the 18 and the 40 are about at the same level right now. And then we have a low ADX condition. So this is, again, a pretty good combination of what I like to look for. Now, I'd like to see a little bit more of a trigger. Probably needs to get through 700 to really kind of be convincing that it's coming out of this minor consolidation period. If it wants to end up consolidating a little bit more and just bouncing around in here before breaking 700, I don't think that's a negative at all. Again, based on what's taken place on the monthly chart, I'm pretty. I think this actually has a pretty good underlying support level, and the conditions here are pretty good. So these are three I think to keep a pretty close eye on in the mega cap universe. That's it for today. That's our Daily 5. You can obviously contact me through LinkedIn or find my research on rabilstockresearch.com. In addition, I do have a YouTube channel and a book called Invest Like a Pro that teaches investors how to use trend and momentum in multiple time frames. Have a great trading day, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're going to bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.